this is going to be called Seesaws of Health and Physiology, just showing that a lot of times things are opposite, and by remembering what things are opposite, you can figure out what's going on, what's important for your health, and make sense of things. So basically, the most basic binary opposition is daytime and nighttime, awake in the day, asleep at night. Okay, the next thing is whether you're fasting or you are postprandial. So prandial means to eat. So postprandial is metabolism immediately after eating. For example, the glucose should go into your skeletal muscle. When you're fasting, though, the liver has glycogen stored, and it breaks down the released glucose into the blood. Also, it can run gluconeogenesis, which is to make glucose. The main job of the liver is to maintain blood glucose for the brain. Okay, and you got to start out with this basic stuff, and we'll build into more sophisticated stuff. Plants, whole plant foods provide most of the good stuff that you need, okay? Almost all of it, really, except for vitamin B12, and even that's a controversial thing. Antioxidants, potassium, magnesium, fiber, and nitrates, the precursors to make nitric oxide. Whereas the animal foods, often the meat has been given estrogenic chemicals to fatten up the cattle quickly. They've been fed GMO corn and soy sprayed with a bunch of toxic herbicides. The amino acid composition is different in animal foods. There's more methionine and leucine, which causes more activation of mTOR, more iron as well, more sat fat. mTOR is a nutrient-sensing pathway to tell the cell to grow, to replicate, which you like if you're 20 years old bodybuilder, but when you're middle age, you don't want that. You don't want something that could potentially accelerate the growth of cancer. You don't want a diet that's more atherogenic. Okay, opposites would be the double cations, calcium and magnesium. Magnesium is the good guy. We get enough calcium. Nobody's deficient in calcium. Okay, and you want your body to spend more time in the maintenance phase, the AMPK pathway. After you've exercised, you've depleted your energy levels in your individual cells and your muscles, so they have to restore their ATP levels. And they also do something called autophagy, mitophagy, where they kind of check that all their mitochondria are functioning well to get rid of them. Mitochondrial biogenesis to make copies of your good mitochondria. Okay, and you want to spend more time of your life in maintenance phase. Growth phase is when nutrients are very abundant. mTOR, the nutrient sensing pathway, says, okay, I got everything I need, time to replicate. All the iron it needs, all the amino acids it needs, for example. You have elevated insulin-like growth factor, for example. Okay, this is really the same thing there. Thixotropic blood just means if you're sedentary, your blood starts to aggregate, starts to clot like a clot. If you go on a trip, you're driving 2 hours, by the time you get out of the car, everything's real stiff and awkward at first, so your blood starts flowing better. When you exercise, your blood flows well and you don't have that thixotropy. Sympathetic is just the opposite of parasympathetic. Sympathetic means fight or flight, stress response. It's putting your foot on the accelerator. PANS is parasympathetic autonomic nervous system, and that's the opposite. That's relaxation. Feed and breed, rest and digest. And you want to spend more of your life in PANS if you can. That's when you're most thoughtful and creative. When you're stressed out, you're just trying to survive. You're not that thoughtful. So here's a stressed out guy. The way to remember everything he's doing is being chased by a tiger in the dark, okay? Now here is the effect of elevated cortisol from being chronic psychologically stressed. You get a big fat belly, you get proximal muscle weakness, increased acne, hirsutism, hair on your face, osteoporosis of the bones. You void out in your urine more magnesium and potassium, which has a negative effect on you. You can become depleted in those things. You save sodium, that's called a mineralocorticoid effect, which can raise your blood pressure. It elevates blood lipids and blood glucose, which worsens diabetes. Okay, but here's what I think is the most interesting slide in the whole talk. We know that SANs and PANs are opposite. Sympathetic is opposite of parasympathetic. We know that cortisol, adrenaline, sodium kind of have an opposite effect than the plant foods. The plant foods are vasodilators that open up artery. The stress of cortisol and the associated catecholamines, adrenaline, noradrenaline, those will vasoconstrict your arteries. Okay, but here's the interesting part. Cortisol is not only just the opposite of melatonin. Cortisol is from being awake, being alert, and being stressed, hypervigilant, whereas melatonin is calm down, sleeping at night, coming from your pineal gland, released into your blood, goes all over your body. But cortisol is also the opposite of oxytocin, the love hormone, the trust hormone. Cortisol is a stressed out, don't trust hormone. But even bigger insight is cortisol is opposite of testosterone. So the point of the matter is, if you want to go for your personal best in weightlifting or something, you don't want to be stressed out, okay? So when cortisol's up, then testosterone's down. So a lot of guys want to increase their testosterone. And what you got to do is you got to lower your stress level, get more sleep, avoid caffeine. because that'll lower your cortisol, and then your testosterone will be increased. Okay, this is the Yerkes-Dodson curve, and it just basically shows you need a little stress to get you going, but too much stress can have a negative effect on you. So what you do is you simplify your life so you have like almost no stress from your regular life, and then you just get a little bit increase when you come into the competitive zone for something, but you don't get overstressed. Excessive stress puts you at increased risk for cancer growth. It sends your physiology in the wrong direction. We have social effects called the Rosetto effect, like this old guy here. Luckily, his family is around him and helping him, otherwise he would be dead. And here's the Rosetto effect. Families in Pennsylvania, demographically matched with neighboring populations. The Italians were healthier, and it's because they lived in extended family groups. So if Luigi over here loses his job, the family can feed him and support him until he finds another job. But if Luigi had been by himself downtown, he loses his job, he can't pay his rent, he can't buy food, he's got big problems. So extended families are a great source of social support. Okay, this is just one common thing in dietary studies. You'll see the real poor people eating a sad diet with terrible, awful health. And then you see the yuppies claiming they're so much healthier and they're eating all kinds of high-fat plant foods. They're eating the high-fat phony diet. And they're better off than these, severe, poor, debilitated people. But there's a higher level, low-fat vegan diet's much better than this. But that's also how you can make a food look good when it's not. It's just compared to something that's even worse. And then here's how it kind of ends up. Most people, unfortunately, they don't know anything about nutrition and they have terrible health. They age very poorly. Almost all the patients will have hypertension and diabetes or prediabetes. Feeding into coronary artery disease or big mess. Some patients are a little more with it. They go lacto-ovo or lacto-ovo-pesco-vegetarian. Only about 1% end up really healthy. Anyways, that's it for this talk. I hope you found it helpful.